Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope it's fantastic and wonderful. There's been a lot of thunderstorms here over the last day, and it's supposed to do that for the rest of the week. So, hopefully this show doesn't get cut off. I don't know where we left off the last time we talked about the train game, but I've hit a wall with it, and I want to talk about it again, and I hope you're okay with that. And by wall, I mean that I think the game is maybe... I'm fairly convinced the game is broken. But I'm not positive. So far, the only person who has playtested this game is M. And the way that M and I playtest this game, it plays great. We actually really enjoy it. And she's always down, and she's actually asking me to play, like, hey, can we play the train game? Like, sure, let's play it. So that's encouraging, at least. And I hit a wall, and it feels like, under scrutiny, the problem that I think this game has would break the game. But maybe that's just a perception issue. Maybe I'm fighting an elephant in the room that's not actually there, right? Because Em and I really enjoy playing the game. But it's been through tons of revisions. This is actually, I don't know if you can tell, but there's like taped over sections. Some of these sections have been taped over 2 or 3 times, some 4 times, some extra, but this is the current version of the board. And this part, the actual layout, where the rivers are, where the difficult terrain is, none of that has changed in the whole time we've been playtesting. Because when I made it the first time, I put a decent amount of thought into how it would be laid out. I knew roughly how big I wanted the map to be. I wanted it to be a tight game. It is extremely loosely based on West Virginia and the West Virginia the way tracks were laid in West Virginia, and because of that, I've named the game Narrow Gauge, because all track here is narrow gauge track, because it's all going through mountainous terrains, tight, twisty turns, and it's just much cheaper and faster to build narrow gauge in this state. So when I designed this, I had Appalachia in mind. I had the hill country, the coal mines, and all that sort of stuff. So the map works. And I don't really want to get into a whole lot of detail about why it's laid out the way it is, but the general theme of it is that there are 5 companies, and some of those companies have rarer shares than others, right? And so because of that, I made sure those companies had more early game potential, whereas other companies can have more late game potential. And when I laid this all out, I had a lot of that in mind. The things that I've messed with over on this side of the board are things like payouts. What do the various companies pay out at the end of the round? This Commodities Market. This is the kind of the secret sauce that makes a 2-player train game work. It's kind of my big idea that I was excited about. And that basically comes down to, if you've ever played like a cube rails game, cities have colors, right? And when you deliver cubes to cities, they have to be of the matching color, and that generally generates you some sort of income. I wanted that feeling, but I didn't want to have cubes delivering. It's not that kind of game. This is more like a junior version of a cube rails game, where you're just laying track and then scoring points, and laying track and scoring points. And so what I came up with was the Commodities Market. And the idea is that when you develop into a city, you, the player, get a commodities bonus for whatever commodity that city produces. And it goes on this commodities market, and this market fluctuates based on how many cities are connected of that commodity type, whether both players are there or not. That those commodities market might drop in price because the commodity has now flooded the market and it's no longer valuable. If you maintain control, meaning that if, say for instance, there are 4 commodities, if I'm in this purple commodity and I can keep you from connecting to the purple commodity, I've got a monopoly, and so my cube will stay high on that commodities chart, and I'll keep getting payouts. And so that's the kind of the secret sauce that makes the 2-player game work. The problem is, and this is the problem that I'm fighting, and I don't know that this is a problem. Sometimes, so the board is pretty everything is kind of equidistant. These towns have, or these cities have towns within 4 spaces. These have within 3 spaces. This one has within 4 or 5 spaces. So everything is kind of 4-ish spaces away to the next connection. And on your turn, you're going to be able to lay anywhere from 2 to a maximum of 6 tracks, depending on the cards that you have in your hand. It's all card driven. And so there are going to be instances, because of the way the terrain is laid out, because of the way the cards play out, where you're not going to be able to make connections on your turn, which is, it's kind of a big deal to make connections. You get a connection payout, you get a share of a stock that's going to increase in value, because the more connections, the more stocks pay out, and you're going to get that market share, or you're going to be able to control the price of the commodities by making connections. There's going to be turns where you can't, because of the cards you have, they suck, and the terrain sucks. And so in those instances, it's often the best play to just take a share of your opponent's, whatever your opponent has a majority in, and just build useless track. And I think that's valid. I think that's a perfectly valid play. And in any train game, that's a perfectly valid play, to take a stock certificate and to tank that stock's value to hurt your opponents. Yes, you're hurting yourself, but in the long run, if your opponent has 8 shares and you have 3 and you tank that stock, you've made up that difference by the points difference between you. And so I think in this game, that is often the valid play, like often. And I think that once somebody opens Pandora's box and does that, once I decide to not improve my personal stake because whatever the stocks are that are available, or because the cards in my hand are terrible, and I decide to tank one of your stocks, then it just becomes this kind of stagnant game of both of us not really wanting to advance anything and just trying to tank everything. And that's the part that I'm worried about. When Em and I play, we play it, we enjoy the puzzle of trying to make connections to try and constantly improve our stock portfolio, and we don't necessarily sit and min-max our net value, our net gain versus our immediate gain or anything like that. And that's very much not how train gamers play games. Am I making a train gamer game? I don't think I am. I initially thought, yes, I am making a game for train gamers, and what I've realized now is no, this is just a baby game. This is like a step up from Ticket to Ride, right? This is a step in that direction. It's headed towards cube rails, but it's between Ticket to Ride and cube rails. It's a more accessible open game. I'm just worried that if 2 gamers sit down and make gamer type decisions, make those min-max type decisions, the game will break, and it will break, irreparably. But again, that might not be a problem, because is this game for them? Probably not. And there are games that I think that, I'm not saying you have to play this game in the spirit of the game. There are games that have been produced and are very popular and sell lots of money, and you have to play those games in the spirit of the game or they become unplayable. This could be one of those, right? It's a 2-player game, and if both of you just decide to do nothing, then are you really playing a game? That's your problem. Maybe that's not my problem as the game's designer. As the game's designer, my problem is to make sure that there's elements of the game that are fun, that the map is not so imbalanced that there's any sort of crazy player advantage, and that there's not some sort of broken strategy to winning. That's the thing, though. I'm trying to see, is there a broken strategy? I don't know yet. I'm not positive. I'm not convinced. So that's where I'm at. I've been really enjoying the development, though. I think that I am about 95% on the math, and I did all of this just by feel. I did not actually sit down and try to calculate math. I've done it all by feel so far and playing a dozen games, and I think it's fine. I think it's close enough. I will have a mathematic friend look at it and help me figure out, are we close enough? I don't, because it's a stock sharing or stock taking game, and there are auctions each round to determine who goes first. It's somewhat self-balancing. I can be a little off here and there, and it's okay, because it's going to balance itself just through the players realizing that maybe this commodity makes more, or this train has a better position, this company has a better position based on the board layout. I can be okay with that. So We'll see. Oh, the other thing I added, I carried these down here because I wanted to tell you I added something new to the game to give that auction a little bit more oomph. Where it was before, you're just auctioning who goes first, and that decision really doesn't matter that much, right? It might get you like $5 because you were able to make a connection right off the bat that you don't want your opponent to make. Okay. I added contract cards, and the concept here is that 3 of these will get flipped at each round, and the winner of the auction gets to choose one first, and then the other player gets to choose one from the leftovers. And these cards have a bunch of like special abilities that hopefully make the turn's decisions a little bit more interesting, or the round's decisions a little bit more interesting. Just adds a tiny little bit of flavor for the round, but they could also be very, very beneficial. I took one in one game that netted me a pretty decent amount of money one round, and that actually felt a little bit wrong. So I have changed it. These need a whole lot of balance testing but again, it's an auction game. They can be unbalanced, and you, the players, it's up to you to bid accordingly, right? That's where I'm at. I'm trying to get this done before, hopefully, by the end of next week, I want to put an order in for a printed prototype version of this. I would like to have a nice prototype to take to Gen Con with me to play. And the Game Crafter is getting backed up pretty quickly. I ordered something a week ago, and it's not even in production yet. I'm still like 500 out in the queue or something like that. That's very concerning because Gen Con's coming up in 6 weeks. So I need to get an order on this soon, and I need to get on Hedeby because I really want to take Hedeby to Gen Con, and I don't necessarily want to take a handmade copy. So that one, I might literally order just like the backs of cards and the board, and then hand assemble the rest, just so I have a decent looking prototype. We shall see. So that's where I'm at. Hope that was interesting. If you are interested in reading the rules and telling me why they suck, please reach out to me through either Twitter, Instagram, or my email. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. It's Wednesday. I'm going to go play games. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is halcyon. It's an adjective meaning calm, peaceful, carefree, and prosperous. It was the most halcyon summer I ever spent. Rick Bass, an American author and environmental activist. Halcyon. Halcyon. Now, for me, because I'm a maker and I'm on YouTube and I watch the maker community on YouTube, halcyon is a type of waterborne epoxy-based finish from Total Boat that lots of people love to use. Didn't know that it was an actual word.